Last time on Perfect World post-production, we discovered a port of steam and rails to create 6 and Minecraft 121.1, then made quick use of it by designing a hover tractor and trailer. However, by the end of the episode, we decided we didn't want to destroy our wheat field after all, partly because as the field is not flat, it wouldn't really harvest all of this stuff, so it would just look really weird, because it would end up harvesting in patches, mostly down here and at the top, and maybe a few random bits on the hill, which is going to look awful, but it would also destroy all of our dry grass and our tall grass and things like that, and just make the field look very, very messy or bland, depending on whether it's just been cut or not. And I don't really want all my hard work to get decimated like that. But we do still need wheat, as well as all the other crops, and that's what this field over here is going to be for. And as I did mention last episode, thanks to you folks, we've got lots of ideas of different things we can try over here, so we can try and do better at making it fit in with the solar punk theme. There have been so many ideas, though, I don't really know what route to take, or how some of these options could look, and to be honest, I barely even know what some of them even are. So we're going to have a creative world day today, at least to begin with. This way we can quickly try a few things and hopefully come to a decision on how we're going to move forward. But just before we jump over to a flat world, I have some news. If you want Hightail content, as well as a bunch of other games, I have a brand new variety gaming channel. Currently playing Hightail, but we will be playing other games in future, so if that's of interest to you, please do go check that out. For now though, as the sun goes down, let's jump into a nice bright flat world. There we go, a nice new flat world. It didn't stay flat for long, however. I did grab a schematic of our field, which, to be honest, I'm not sure if we're going to leave it like this or not. We're probably going to change it depending on what kind of farm we go with. And the first thing I'm going to try is something called agrivoltaics. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly or not. It's a word I'd never heard of before. But basically, it's mixing crops and solar panels. A bit like this, this, and this. So I guess if we were going to do something like that, what we'd probably want is a line of veggies. Let's just stick a few rows in for now, and I think double wide rows would make sense. So something like that, and then we would have solar panels over the top. So let me think about spacing. We're probably not going to want solar panels on every row, but if, for example, we had 4 rows, we could have solar panels here. Put these bearings facing in. Nice big girder across here. So if we were to do something like that, let's just get all this glued together. Turn all of these blue because they look a bit more solar panel-y that way. Set this to only place when anchor destroyed. I guess we don't really need one of them on this side. We could just put that in. Then we'll turn them 45 degrees. I mean, that is pretty cool. I quite like that. But would these strips in the middle here be coarse dirt perchance? Or in fact, maybe dirt path would work better? I mean, I'll tell you what, this does actually look quite nice. Thinking about it, what we can maybe do is actually hydrate the fields. And with the addition of another row and a higher tick rate, I think that's actually looking pretty good. I like that. The question now is, how are we going to harvest the fields? So we could run our hover plow down the middle here and plow either side, but I don't think that's going to look particularly good. So we probably want something a little bit smaller that kind of goes up and down these aisles. So if we were to, for example, use phantom rail, that doesn't destroy the blocks underneath. Okay, that's good. I was worried it might turn them back to dirt. But the problem with phantom rail is the turning circle on these things. It's, yeah, we're not going to be able to get in to there. So we're going to miss like 3 rows. And there's not a narrow gauge version of this invisible track, so yeah, we won't be using this, I don't think. So our next option would be to hide narrow gauge track underneath, but once again, we're still not really going to get a good turning circle. It's still going to be like that, so it's going to end up with a really weird route, kind of doing laps and circles. So I guess we're not going to do that either. And that pretty much only leaves us with one option, and that is going to be to use minecart contraptions. So if we were to bury some track down here, we can still put blocks over the top, and then we can make some little harvesters out of minecart contraptions. So that might be the way to go. And as long as we make sure that all of these rails are powered, hopefully we won't have any problems with chunk borders and things like that. So now I need to design some kind of a harvester machine, and because we've got these just in 2 wide, we could probably do something quite small, just using 2 harvesters like that. And if that went up and down every row, we would be able to harvest everything. But I don't know what I want this bot to look like. Let's go over here, put down some pairs of harvesters, and come up with a few designs, and we'll see what we want to go with. So let's start with a wheelie bot. Maybe stick a volt as its chest piece. We're going to need to get all of this connected up, so let's do this. And then we just need some kind of arms. And I'm thinking these levers might work quite well. Yeah, I quite like that. Let's give him a face. And we'll use the smart observer for that. Although I'll tell you what, that chest doesn't look right, does it? Is there something else we can use? Let's try maybe this shipping container. Okay, that's cool. He's got the 2 little lines on the front. Makes it a bit more interesting. Let's just put his arms back in. Can we maybe give him a back tank? No, it doesn't attach. Okay, let's not bother with that. How about giving him some solar power? I don't know, he looks a bit tall, really, doesn't he? He looks a bit silly. Maybe no solar power for you. How about a link? No, don't like that. Looks pretty good on your back, though. Then maybe a redstone link on top. Let's just set that to receive so you get the cool little aerial. Okay, so he's a bit chonky. I'm not sure on that one. Maybe let's try something a bit shorter, because we don't need to make sure that there's storage on this thing. We can always hide the storage underground as part of the contraption. How would I connect these, though? Maybe the bite blocks? That could work. If we put one, say, there and there, or there and there, or there and there. I think there and there is probably best, but I don't like the chest area. Maybe, yeah, look at that. That's cool. Do we want a redstone link on top again? Yeah, I quite like this guy, but we're not done yet. Let's try something a bit more quirky. Some of you may recognize this as our good friend Dave from the Just Create SMP. I mean, he's had a body upgrade, but it's fairly similar. I guess we'd have to use the bite blocks again here. Maybe like that this time. I mean, he's pretty cool as well. Wonder if we just adjust this guy's arms a little bit. Maybe something more like that. Or like that, maybe? I mean, they're all pretty good. I think this guy might be my favorite, though. So let's just lay down a bunch of rail. In fact, we should probably cut out a channel along the route we want him to take. So I've got a rail in that runs underneath the farm. Let's just get all of this glued together. Right, that should be everything. So if I give this some power, he should go off and harvest everything. Oh, yes. Look at him go. Yeah, I like that. He's going to go all the way back now, of course, because we've not told him to do anything else. But yeah, that's cool. I actually really like this. So this is one potential farming method. I do like it. Whether we're going to do it or not, I don't know, because we've got some other things to try. So next up, we're going to look at hydroponics. So I've dumped down another new field over here, and we're going to try this out. And to be honest, it's probably going to be fairly similar to that over there in terms of layout. So I'm going to quickly grab the bottom section of this. Let's just quickly make that schematic. Dump that on the ground around about there. Beautiful. Now for this one, we won't need water patches in the fields because we have these sprinklers. With these, you just put a sprinkler on a pipe and then it will hydrate the ground around it. And apparently you can also pour lava on a cow. Who knew? But what I don't know is what the range of these sprinklers are. So let's quickly do some science. So over in this corner, let's just put down a creative tank of water. Put in a nice big pipe, mechanical pump, cog, another pipe with a block on the ends just so it doesn't leak everywhere. And then we'll stick on a mechanical pump, turn that up to max, and put a sprinkler underneath. So that is the center point. What I want to know is how far out does the hydration go? So from what I can tell, it's only going to do a 5x5 area. So let's just leave that running for a little while and see what happens. In the meantime, if we were going to do that, we would need to have hydroponics down every other row of crops. So let's get some girders, and we've got some pipes. I reckon you're probably going to want it at about that height. Then have the pipes in there like that. Then I guess you'd use brackets to attach this to the girder. Now, it does occur to me that I'm actually going to need to power these things as well, because it's going to need pumps running along the top. So let's get rid of these girders. Put in a shaft instead, because the pumps themselves only go 16 blocks. So we're going to need to put in additional pumps everywhere we need them. In fact, I've got a better idea. Let's put all this girder back in again. Then if we put a pump in there instead, so something like that does work. The crops are being watered. Then we'd have the same kind of harvester bots that we've got at the one over there. But I'll be honest, I can imagine with a whole field of these going on, it's going to get quite framey because of all the particles coming from the water, which has actually run out. Let me just quickly chuck a creative tank at the top here. There we go. But yeah, I can imagine the frames dropping quite a lot with so many particles going on if we had an entire field doing that. And from a looks perspective, I do think that one over there with all the solar panels looks better. But also, there's nothing to stop us from doing a combination of both, depending on the crop type. But yeah, I don't think I want to explore this one any further for now. Next up, we're going to take a look at vertical farming, or more specifically, vertical greenhouses. Now, we did do greenhouses before in Perfect World 1. In fact, we had 10 giant greenhouses with lots of sprinklers in, and, well, the frames there were absolutely awful. So we're not going to repeat that. So yeah, we're not going to be doing giant greenhouses over here. Unless they're vertical, in which case we might do. And there was also a suggestion of doing like little farm domes. So like, if you imagine just little glass domes that go over some of the farms with their own sort of power and spinning things going on. But that's exactly what Throwlash did in Just Create Season 1, and I don't want to be doing the same thing. I think he pretty much nailed those designs. So let's try something new, a vertical greenhouse. So I guess we should start by making another field. Right, so a vertical farm. First off, let's stick a farm in the ground. So once we get this row in, that is the standard amount of land that you can hydrate with one water block. However, I feel like a vertical farm should potentially be round. So if we were to stick in more water in, say, these spots, then we'll just try and round this off. So something a bit more like that. And as it's a vertical farm, we're going to need more layers. So let's build up another layer here, and then we can just duplicate that to get like 5 or so maybe. And I'm thinking maybe what we actually want is a double layer. Then we can replace that bottom layer of grass with something else so that there's proper levels in between each farm and it's not just floating dirt. So I'm actually going to dig out this bottom layer again, and we'll replace the ceiling with smooth stone, and then we're going to need some kind of light source. And the thing we've got easiest access to is currently the shroom lights, but we can also stick them into a chipped table and get these ones, maybe the hive ones. We'll try the smooth ones as well, and maybe one in the middle. So that provides light on each level. I'm thinking let's replace this outer edge of dirt with some more of this diorite. So we should probably do the same on the floor here as well, because I want to keep the same size of circle, but we don't need all of it to be crops, I suppose. So we'll make sure we put water in the same spots as well. Plant some more seeds. Now, if we just grab a schematic of this, we can dump a few more in a big tall column. Right, there we go. There's 5 fields of crops. Now the question is, how do we want to harvest these? And what with it being a round farm, I think harvesters going around in a circle makes the most sense. So I'm going to have to take out a little bit of that and take out a little bit of that. Let's put some harvesters on here. We'll just have to replant these crops once everything's moving. And instead of having something running right up through the middle of all the farms that spins round, I think I want to have a circle on the outside that goes round, if that makes sense, which it probably doesn't. Let me see if I can show you what I mean. So we'll start by just putting a little bit of a structure here, using girders, obviously. We do love a girder. We'll bring that all the way up to the top here. Then we'll just do the same thing on the next row up with more harvesters. Attach it to the frame and so on. Let's just get this done on every level. So that's all of those in, and what we're going to do is we've got a windmill bearing here. We're going to stick a mechanical bearing underneath, set that to only place when anchor is destroyed. So we're going to use these windmill sail frames, get everything glued together. Then we need to glue this entire thing together. Thankfully it should be quite easy. It's very square, just lots of lines of super glue. And we're also going to want some kind of a collection system. So for now, let's just stick one of these in here. And we'll have another one here with a funnel. That burns it all in lava, because we don't actually need it right now. But I think we're all glued together. This is set to only place when anchor destroyed. So in theory, I should just be able to do this. And there we go. We have a vertical farm. Just need to replace all the crops that I damaged. And I would, of course, need to put storage on here as well, because currently it's just going to break everything and then leave it laying on the ground. But for a vertical farm concept, that kind of works. There is a problem, though. It currently has no support structure whatsoever, so we'd need to do something probably in the middle here. So perhaps something like that, so it looks like it's actually being supported. Just something that's a bit chunkier than this. Or, of course, we could put a structure on the outside so you can't really see the stuff's floating inside, but I'm not sure how I feel about that, because we're going to want a lot of natural light in here, which means we're probably going to want a lot of glass. But once again, we wouldn't be able to put them on the bottom here, because then everything's just going to clip through, and that's going to look really weird. So yeah, I like the idea, I like the concept, but it just doesn't feel very rural to me. Whereas this farm and this farm feel much more rural. So maybe this is something we should save for if and when we get to doing like a more futuristic solar punky type city. I think this would fit really well with something like that, but I don't think it's going to look right sitting in my fields. So there are options. We've got hydroponics, although to be a true hydroponic setup, this should probably be in a greenhouse as well. But as I say, we did do that on Perfect World 1. We've got the vertical farm ideas, which I do like, but I think we should save for the city. So that means I think we're actually just going to be sticking with our first idea. I say our first idea. None of these are my ideas. These have all come from the comments with multiple people suggesting all of these things. But I do think I like this idea the most. It's going to look aesthetically pleasing. We can make use of the field we've already got. We get to make some cool little robots and things that go around. I mean, what's not to like with a plan like that? Although I do think I am going to reshape the field a bit. I don't really want this sticky out bit here, so I'm probably just going to bring that along over this way, and then we'll have this whole area here as our crop fields and solar fields. And I've already forgotten the word of what that's called. Agrivoltaics, that's it. Right, let's go back to the main world. Alrighty, so we have a plan. We just need to figure out how we're going to execute it. And I think the first thing we're actually going to do is sort out this edge of the field. I really don't like this. So let's just grab a few wall making blocks and we'll get that shape sorted out. That feels like a much better field shape. We can just use this area over here for trees or something like that later on. I don't know, we'll figure that out. But I think the next step is going to be working out the field layout and exactly what crops we're going to be growing here. We're probably not going to grow everything over here. You know, I mean, we do need quite a lot of things like wheat and carrots so that we can keep the meat farms running, as well as wheat and carrots for ourselves. We're not going to need quite so much of things like the lettuce, tomatoes, onions, and so on. So they can be smaller patches, I guess. I'm thinking about it. What we could actually do with this space here is put in a building to use for the processing and collection of the crops, maybe? I don't know. For now, let's go grab a hoe, some water, and just start working out the field layout, which I think for the most part is just gonna be lots of roads like we did in the test world, going all the way down this way. But I think I want to have a central clear area that sort of goes at this angle here. Although, do we even need a road going right through the middle? What we could do is just have a small sort of yard area here, and then literally just have rows that go all the way across as they go further back. That might actually look a bit better. And something else I'm going to do is actually move this gate here to open it that way. Then it's just a bit more out of the way. Right, let's go get a hoe, get some water, set our brightness to the right level. I didn't even notice it was nighttime. And it is going to be a mixed field, so we don't need to worry about separating out the different areas. We're just going to make a giant crop field and plant lots of stuff and things. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is just start with the paths. So we want to be having them 2 wide all the way down. And I've got to do this over pretty much the entire field. To say that was quite satisfying. It's just annoying I am going to have to dig all of this up later to lay the rails, but that's a problem for future, Beardy. For now, I want to get the water in. We're going to do the same thing we did in our test world, which is to put a bucket of water under a trapdoor every 9 blocks on the path, and then we can skip 2 rows and do it again, and we've got to do that over the whole field. So I best get to work. That's everything hydrated. Now it's time to hoe the land. Oops, I just broke my hoe. Let's go make a new one. And maybe we should put unbreaking as well as mending on it this time. We've got plenty of emeralds. Do we have any books? Yes. So let's make another diamond hoe. Grab some levels. And hope we start off with some good enchants. I mean, that's pretty good. Then we'll buy mending from this guy. Still selling them for 1. What a legend. Put that on there. There we go. Right, back to the fields. Oh, and after quite a lot of effort, we are done, at least with all of that part. I think the next thing I want to do is get in these solar panels, and then we'll work out what crops we're going to put where. But for the solar panels, I'm going to need a whole lot of quartz. To be honest, I don't know how much I've actually got. So I've got 342, which means I can make 114 daylight detectors. That is a tiny fraction of what I'm going to need. So what's the best way to get it? We can, of course, go to the nether and mine it. We can crush down diorites for a 25% chance. We can wash soul sand. We can wash gold. Or we can literally just chop up quartz. Right. So first question, how much diorite do we have? A reasonable amount. So we'll smash all that up, but I don't know how far that's actually going to get us. So let's see what that gets us. I mean, that's going to get us another stack of daylight sensors, but we're still going to want more. The problem is I've built so many solar panels already, I've used up all the quartz I did have. So yeah, we got 4 and a bit stacks from that. So that tells me we're probably going to be better off mining in the nether than we would be mining in the overworld. So let's dump all that in there. I'm going to make myself some fire resistance potions. So I need magma cream. Put some water bottles in there. We'll mix up some awkward potions. Oh, and we're going to want redstone as well. So then we'll put magma cream in there. That is going to turn these awkward potions into fire resistance potions. And the redstone dust is going to make them 8-minute potions instead of 3 minutes. Right, so let's grab our drill, go into the nether, and just generally hope for the best, really. I believe I dug a hole somewhere around here. Aha, there it is. But what we're going to do is make sure we're grabbing every bit of quartz we see along the way. We need lots of this stuff. And we might not even need to use the drill because there's probably so much in the walls that we can already scour off. All right, let's just fly down here and gather everything we can, I guess. Well, I grabbed all I could from the corridors. We got about 450 there. So now we're digging out more corridors. I think we're going to need probably a good few thousand of this. So I'm back in the drill warehouse. I'm going to put all of the quartz I picked up in there, so that's quite a lot. But we're also going to wait for this thing to offload because this has probably got lots in it as well. We've done quite well on ancient debris so far as well. We're fully offloaded and we have 4,888 quartz. So hopefully we can now make a whole load of daylight sensors. So it looks like I'm going to need a bunch more glass. So let's cook up a whole bunch of sand. Dump all that back in storage. And we'll see how many of these we can make now. About 700 or so by the looks of it. So let's just throw all of this. Let my backpack pick it all up. Now if I use the crafting table in my backpack, I can just hold shift and it will just keep refilling the recipe. So yeah, we've got about 900 of them now. That should be enough to make a decent dent. Let's grab loads of super glue. We're going to need that. We're going to need mechanical bearings. We're going to need some valves. We're going to need girders. We're going to need a lot more girders than that. I think we might need to go flatten some iron. So let's get the iron going. Then we're going to turn all that into girders. We're going to make a whole bunch of these diagonal ones as well. I think they're going to come in handy. And that should be enough to get us started on these solar farms. And I think we're going to have them every other row. Or at least we'll start with that. And if it looks too much, then we'll switch it to every 3 rows. And my plan here is to try 2 different styles. So first up, we'll do the same as we did in the creative world. So we'll put the mechanical bearing there, the valve on the end. Set that to only place when anchor destroyed. We'll do each panel as 5 wide. Make sure they're connected. Get it all glued together. Then we need to turn all the panels blue and then rotate it. For the second one, however, I just want to try a different style of bracket on the bottom. I'm thinking a shaft and some brackets might look quite cool. And then if we put brackets on the bottom here, do the rotating, and what do we prefer the look of? I think the shafts look a little bit more detailed. They just kind of give it a little bit more from this side. From this side, doesn't really make too much difference, but I think I like it. So let's turn this one to a shaft, and we'll see how many of these solar panels we can get in before we run out of daylight sensors. Well, we're making some progress, but I've run out of daylight sensors. Thankfully, I think it was just a lack of glass as opposed to a lack of quartz that we didn't get to make more. Let's go check. Yep, it's definitely a lack of glass. But we also don't have any sand left to turn into glass. But we've got plenty of gravel that we can turn into sand. So it looks like we've got a bit of processing to do. So let's turn all of this into sand, and then we'll cook all that into glass. And now we can make a whole lot more panels and get that field finished, hopefully. Well, it's taken all afternoon and a couple of trips to go make more glass so we can actually make more solar panels, or daylight sensors, I should say. But it's all in and it's looking pretty good. However, it's going to look a whole lot better once we get some crops on the bottom level. What I need to do, however, is go find my checklist again and figure out exactly what crops we actually want to grow on this field. So let's do cabbage, tomato, potato, carrot, onion, wheat, beetroot, berries. So that's 8 different crops. I mean, we could potentially do melons and pumpkins as well, but I'm not sure if the harvesters actually pick those up, do they? Let's quickly jump back into our testing world, grab some pumpkins and some melons, and let's just find out. No, they don't. So we won't be harvesting them in this field. We've already done the mushrooms. We're not going to do glowberries. And one other thing that we need to harvest that isn't on this list is rice. And I think we can do that in this field as well. We'll just flood an area of it. So I've collected a whole bunch of seeds from the small farm we already have. So we've got 8 crops plus the rice. And I don't have enough of all of these crops to actually fill up everything that I would want to. But we're going to see how far we can get. And we're just going to mix all the crops. So basically every row is going to be a different crop, and we'll just do that all the way throughout the field. I will make sure, however, that I'm planting extra wheat and extra carrots, because as I say, we're going to need lots of those for the animals in there. So we'll probably dedicate a whole area at the back there just to those things. And you may be asking, does one man really need this many crops? The answer is no. I'm just doing this because I wanted to, and I thought it would look cool. And the other thing is, this whole farm is only going to work when I have the area loaded, and this means that I can just AFK for an hour or so and then probably never need to AFK again. At least that's the hope. There we go. That is looking so much better with all the crops in, and it will look even better once they actually grow. But now we need to sort out the harvesting, and that's where we start to run into a bit of a problem. We are going to need so much rail to get all of this done, and because it's going over lots of different chunks, I want to make sure it's all powered rails, so that as chunks load and unload, the minecarts just sort of carry on moving. At least that's the hope. I'm thinking we'll put controller rails on the edge of every chunk border, and then if a cart does stop, when we then reload the chunks, it will be on a powered one of these, so it should start moving again. So we're going to need lots of these, which means we need lots of electron tubes, and we're going to need lots of powered rail as well, which basically means we're going to need lots and lots of gold. Much more gold than I currently have, although when I was in the nether I did make sure I dug up all the gold I came across, so we do have 1,000 nuggets here, which I guess is probably going to get us some ingots. 112. But we basically need 1 gold ingot for each piece of rail, so we're going to need thousands. And if we have a look in storage, I think I've only got 100 or 2 in there as well. That was optimistic of me. I have 22 ingots, I have 2 raw gold, and I have 666 gold nuggets. So let's just quickly convert them into ingots as well. So now we have 186. So before we can finish the field over there, we're going to need to make ourselves a gold farm, I think. But we don't have time to do that in this episode, so I guess that's what we're doing in the next one. But thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.